Locked On Texans, your daily Houston Texans podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
John, I know I say this every single week, but I just feel like this is the worst loss of the season, man. They could have had a win streak. What the hell? Oh, my gosh.
Well, Texan fans, I know you see the frustration with Cody. I got the same frustration. I'm sure you guys have it as well, but welcome to another episode of the Locked On Texans podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And thank you for listening and making the Locked On Texans your first listen. We are free and available on all platforms. The Houston Texans lost 21-14 to the New York Jets. And you guys are here to talk Texans. We're here to talk Texans. Cody, get the folks a rundown, those good people, and let's get into it.
Man, to be honest with you, John, I don't even know if we're going to have listeners or viewers. I think it's going to be just as empty as inside NRG Stadium. Oh my gosh. But on this losing Monday installment of Locked On Texans, of course, John and I are going to break down and discuss the Houston Texans 21-14 loss to the New York Jets. We're going to talk about the defense, but we're going to close out this Monday installment of Locked On Texans by talking about the biggest news surrounding this organization. And no, it doesn't have to do anything with Deshaun Watson. It actually has something to do with Justin Reid. But before we jump into all of that and talk about how bad this offense is, John, give the listeners and the viewers some important numbers from yesterday's loss.
Absolutely. Tyrod Taylor goes 17 of 26 on the field for 2 touchdowns, 1 interception. He was sacked 5 times. As a team, the Houston Texans rushed for 96 total yards on 24 carries, rushing for 4 yards per carry, which is, I think that's somewhat of an improvement. The bulk of that was a 15-yard average between Tyrod Taylor, his 2 carries for 30 yards. The Houston Texans, Brandon Cooks, 3 catches for 45 yards and 1 touchdown, but only 5 targets. And I have an issue with that. The other touchdown came from rookie tight end Brevin Jordan, 3 catches for 23 yards and 1 touchdown, as I mentioned. As a defense, the Houston Texans were able to get after Zach Wilson 4 times on Sunday, which I think is a very bright spot. That defensive front, actually, I think that front 7 continues to play a little bit better and better with continuity in the last few weeks. And they also recorded 1 interception. Some team stats for the Houston Texans: 13 total first downs, 7 coming by passing, 4 coming down rushing, and only 2 touchdowns. 2 first downs coming by penalty. The Houston Texans averaged 3.7 yards per play. That is abysmal. That is terrible. And it's even worse when you look at the New York Jets, who got 4.3 yards per play. Are you not better than the New York Jets?
Oh, my gosh.
Obviously not. The time of possession, 26 compared to the New York Jets, 33.42. So basically 26 minutes compared to 34. I think on yesterday, there's a couple of things that I mentioned, and I'll pass it over to you. The fourth down play, in order to keep the game going, you need to pick up this first down so you can have a possibility to tie up the game. I thought Tyrod Taylor forced a pass when Brevin Jordan was wide open on that 4th down. And why in the hell would you decide to run the ball on that 3rd down? Now, I get it. I understand. The thinking behind that is, we're already going to go for it on 4th down, so let's try to see if this run can help us out. But when has the run really helped you out the entire year? It has not. And you are better when the ball is in the air, not on the ground. So I disagree with that call. I thought that play call was, quite frankly, disgusting to watch. Considering your offensive line is getting beat up, they are not able to create a push. Listen, if you take away the 30 yards from Tyrod Taylor that he got on his 2 rushing carries because he was able to break out and roll and pick up some extra yards with his feet, the Houston Texans, David Johnson, who got injured, never came out that injury tent, 10 carries, 39 yards, and Rex Burkhead, 12 carries for 27 yards. So that's 22 carries for a combined of 66 yards, 3 yards, 3.3 yards on the ground. The run game has been non-existent for you so far, but the combination of those two plays were not mind-boggling because I'm not shocked that they even lost the game, honestly. But another reason why we point the finger at Tim Kelly and say, hey, you look lost. You look out of place. You look like a guy that lied on his resume. And the only reason why you got this job is because your buddy knew the guy that was hiring. And your buddy is doing a terrible job in Alabama, might I add. But, again, and you could take the floor, Cody, but this has been a terrible offense to watch. At times I want to gouge my eyes out.
John, I know you, listeners, viewers, and a lot of people that are associated with the Houston Texans as of right now, whether it's as a reporter, whether they are fans or whatever the case might be. A lot of people are calling for Tim Kelly's job right now, and I understand it, but I do want to scale back to a certain degree and say a lot of the struggles, the majority of the struggles that we saw the Houston Texans offense go through isn't Tim Kelly's fault. It wasn't Tyrod Taylor's fault. And John, I understand that you had an issue by the lack of targets that Brandon Cooks had, the lack of targets that a guy like Nico Collins and Brevin Jordan had. But let's keep this in mind. The offensive line put on arguably, if not their worst performance of the season. I understand that the most sacks that they gave up this year came in their loss against the Los Angeles Rams, but that's a little bit understandable because you got Aaron Donald, who is one of, if not the best defensive lineman over the last decade on the opposite side of that line of scrimmage. And the New York Jets has nobody that's come close to the talents of Aaron Donald. However, with all that being said, John, let's rewind. Let's take a trip back to, let's say, about 2-3 weeks ago. Remember in their loss against the Indianapolis Colts, you and I talked about how bad the secondary looked. And part of the reason why I felt that secondary looked bad is because there was always switching people around. And that's part of the reason why we saw Lonnie Johnson go from his best version of himself to the worst version of himself. And I say this because of the inconsistencies that they are showing. Then later on in the week, I had an opportunity, ironically, to chop it up with Justin Reid, and he talked about the same thing, that it's hard for the secondary to find camaraderie with amongst one another when the coaching staff is always switching things up. That same issue that we saw in the secondary is the same thing that we saw with this offensive line. Because look, ever since Laremy Tunsil and Justin Britt went down, and Marcus Cannon to a certain extent, the offensive line has looked subpar at best. And those at best is the game that we saw last week against the Tennessee Titans. However, with all that being said, they switched up their offensive line by putting Titus Howard at left tackle, which was the first time in his career that he played that position, and Lane Taylor, they inserted him at left guard. And because you made that switch, it threw everything off from the progression that offensive line showcased last week against the Tennessee Titans. And look, once again, I understand it that you are a little bit frustrated. I understand that the listeners and the viewers are frustrated by the play caller that Tim Kelly put out there on the field. But what I do want to say is this: it is hard for this team to go out there and execute the offensive game plan when your offensive line is terrible. However, I don't want to let Tim Kelly off the hook, because in that first quarter, when the Houston Texans went up with 14-3, when they had that 14-3 lead, it was already well established that the offensive line was going to have a terrible day. And what did Tyrod Taylor do? He adjusted his game plan. Instead of taking his time in the pocket, he started making quick decisions. And that resulted in not one, but 2 touchdowns for the Houston Texans. But what did Tim Kelly do in the second half? Something that bugged you and I last year, something that continues to bug you and I this year. And that is, once the Texans get the lead, he start being way too conservative with his play calling. And that is a terrible mistake, especially when you consider how bad that backfield has been this entire season. John, before I give the floor back over to you, in the first half, the Houston Texans went 36 plays for 156 yards. In the second half, 19 plays for 45 yards. The offensive line was terrible, but for him to become that conservative, once again, it leaves us shaking our heads at Tim Kelly like, what the hell are you doing?
There's a couple of things that I wanted to mention, and I'm not going to stay long on it, but we've talked about Lonnie Johnson and the switch between corner and safety.
Mm-hmm.
Whether we believe he's a good blocker or not, there has been a disservice for Titus Howard. Now, that could be because you're not good at left guard. Were you really that good at right tackle? Were you really that good at right? Like, that could be because of development issues or just odd tests. However, I think Eric Flowers is the lineman that comes to mind for his comp, right? If I can compare, right now he reminds me of Eric Flowers. You were a guy drafted to play this position. He was moved over. I think at this point, the writing on the wall is on the wall for Titus Howard. I don't know how secure he's going to be in the next 2 years. I think he comes back next year after that. I'm not sure how long he stays around for Houston. But for Tim Kelly, he is playing with a very limited quarterback. 3 of the last 4 years, Tyrod Taylor has been hurt. This is his 3rd game back after his own hamstring injury. I think there's a lot of arm limitations there. I don't think there's a lot of what we may have wanted to see out of Tyrod Taylor. But what's inexcusable to me, why would you throw, the game was on the line, 4 seconds, 5 seconds left, why would you throw a pass to Danny Amendola for 5 yards to let the game in? This offense has made me want to gouge my eye out at times. And I just simply take my glasses off. Guys, I want to tell you about DirecTV and how you can make your TV life a whole lot better without the hassle. DirecTV brings you live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before, which means you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. And the best part, there's no annual contract. So stop waiting and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directtv.com. That's directtv.com. Welcome back, Locked On Texans fans, and thank you for making the Locked On Texans your first listen. We are free and available on all platforms. Cody, the defense on Sunday, they did give up 21 points to a struggling Jets offense, and I understand that. They were able to get after the quarterback 4 times, right? They were able to get a turnover, which would be number 11 in the past 3 games, and I think that's a positive. How can I put this? And I want you to answer it, of course, and I want the listeners and viewers out there to answer it as well. But has this been another case? I think this is the best way I can put it. Has this been another case where the offense has let the defense down? Because in the second half alone, Houston had 4 total drives. Out of those 4 drives on the offense, 3 of those drives ended with 2 minutes or less time on the time of possession meter, right? And even in the first half, they weren't really able to establish a lot of ground. The first touchdown was right in their area after the interception. Kudos to the defense for setting them up. But there's been times throughout the season, and this is just another point where they're gassed due to the offense's inability to sustain drives. Or was this a letdown game from the defense, in your opinion?
I'm going to say yes and no to your first question about whether or not this was the Texans defense, basically just being tired. And I say yes because, John, as you just alluded to, look, this Texans offense, especially in that second half, they were unable to sustain drive. And it goes back to something that you and I talked about almost every single Monday. If I go back and take the recap from the Bills game, from the Patriots game, from any game of the season, and copy and paste, I'm going to say the same exact thing. It is hard for the defense to come out there and continue their, let's say, solid and at times great performances when they're constantly on the field. And then the second half, the Houston Texans defense stayed on the field. However, to that same point, I'm going to say no, because the Texans defense could not stop the run. Yes, the New York Jets made most of their damage in the second half, but they started to find that rhythm in the first half by saying, you know what? We can't depend on our rookie quarterback in Zach Wilson, who, by the way, I understand that this was his first game back after a 4-game hiatus. I understand that he is still, dealing with a knee issue, but Zach Wilson might be the worst rookie quarterback of the 2021 draft class. And yes, I'm going to include, I'm also including Davis Mills in that. Like, I think I was more
Davis
impressed.
Mills has been the second best rookie quarterback, I think, so far this year.
And I totally agree. I think it's a tie, more so a tie, because it seemed like Trevor Lawrence is starting to find his niche, but given the fact that he's the number one quarterback of this draft class, I want to say he was also a little bit disappointing, but that's neither here or there in this conversation. But Zach Wilson is not the guy. But I say all that just to say the Jets found out early that they cannot rely on their rookie quarterback. And unlike Tim Kelly, when the Jets realized that they cannot continue to rely on Zach Wilson in hopes of winning their third game of the season, they just started running the ball against the Texans, and they gave up 157 yards on the ground. And once again, yes, I get it. Most of those yardage that they was able to get came in the second half. And John, like I just mentioned, most of those was because the Houston Texans defense stayed on the field and they got tired. But what I would go back and say, they were able to find their mojo and exploit the Texans' lack of run defense in the first half. And that's why I say it's kind of twofold, because at one hand, it's like, okay, the Texans defense, they played pretty good, especially how the way they was able to contain Zach Wilson. But to that same argument, I think there was more so Zach Wilson showcasing to us that he can arguably be the worst quarterback in the 2021 draft class.
Yeah, I honestly, I think he is so far. I think he's a kid that he's a young kid. He's going to a franchise that has been in dysfunction since their second AFC conference game.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but I hope the Texans are not trending towards the trajectory of a New York Jets or Detroit Lions, man.
Well, I think that is a conversation for another time, but all things are possible. But for the defense, I did think that they were going to throw more looks at Zach Wilson. He's a quarterback that has had a 4-interception game, a couple of 3-interception games, I believe. So he's a quarterback in his first year that's been prone to give it over. Now, Houston did snag one. Kudos to them. But I thought Lovie Smith was going to really be more aggressive with some of the play calling at times. I'm not saying that he wasn't, all the way, but I thought that he was going to be way more aggressive and disguise different looks for Zach Wilson in order for him to kind of help his defense not work that much. Like when you have a quarterback like Zach Wilson and he's just giving you, like, here's the interception, here's the interception. You get a pick, you get a pick. We've seen that before this year, and I thought that with the help of the front seven, they'd have more of those opportunities. But, you have the interception that allows you to get into in the red zone where Houston went 1 or 2 on the day. I thought they played fairly well. I do hate that they didn't be more aggressive with some of the play calling, but overall, when you get up the quarterback 4 times and you make him actually work on the day, how much can you blame them? And that is a question where, until week 18, we may ask ourselves that several more times. How much more can you blame this Texan defense? It's here, the best Monday of the year, Cyber Monday, and BuiltBar.com is the place to aim your mouse. Get at least 20% off everything delicious and healthy. That's 20% off site-wide. Even bigger discounts on Built Boost, Broth, and Built Swag. A brand new Built Bar flavor has just landed in time for Cyber Monday, a caramel almond delight. It delivers everything it promises. Caramelized chocolate, check. Almond, check. Is it delightful? Double check. And be sure to get yours before they are gone. This new flavor comes with 150 calories, only 17 grams of protein. Okay? Go to BuiltBar.com for these incredible tasting new bars and 20% off everything. Head to BillBar.com, enter promo code LOCKED20 before it's too late. 'Tis the season to save and to give your taste buds the Built Bar gift. It's the holiday season, and we all know what that means. Football, and nothing goes better with football than gift wrapping and betting. BetOnline has you covered all holiday season with more odds, props, and lines than ever before. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all of sports action this holiday season. Head to our new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus with promo code Locked On to receive your bonus. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet on all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where holiday deals happen. Thanks for making the Locked On Texans your first listen every day. Now make your second listen to the Locked On Bets podcast your daily one-stop shop for all of your gambling needs. Locked On Bets, hosted by your boy Q with expert analysis and insight from Lee Sterling, is free and available on all platforms.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, before we close out this Losing Monday installment of Locked On Texans, leave it up to the Texans for us to take our minds off the game and focus on more off-field drama. Because prior to the game, it was announced that the Texans had suspended Justin Reid for one game based off of a disagreement between Reid and head coach David Culley that took place during a team meeting. John, this is actually the third time this season the Houston Texans suspended a player. Of course, the first time was Zach Cunningham, but that was more so Cunningham continuously being late to practices and continuously being late for team meeting. As we know, I think it was 2 weeks ago, Desmond King was suspended. I got word that the reason why he was suspended because he did not show up to the team Saturday meeting, of course, the day before the game. But whether you disagree or agree with the prior two suspensions, I think this one might be the dumbest because Justin Reid, and as of right now, I don't know what was said. I don't know what went on.
It came out that he challenged head coach David Culley's coaching during the team meeting.
Mm-hmm.
And so the specifics of it, we're not 100% sure on or what was exactly said. And I'm not sure if that'll ever come out. And Justin Reid is a good sport. He said he'll be on the sideline cheering his teammates on. But that is the basis of it right now. He challenged his new first-year head coach. And, you know, I guess this was an opportunity for David Culley to make an example out of, I would say, maybe the team leader for overall, like, you know, would Justin Reid be considered the guy of maybe few guys on his roster that you can count on? And he made an example out of it.
I still don't like it because I know so good and well that when you go back and you take a look at players and coaches, and if he's challenging his coaching, I'm pretty sure it has something to do. Like I said, I don't know right now. This is just me speculating. I'm going to find out, though, by the way. But I'm pretty sure it has something to do about what was going on the field. And John, I hate to use this example, but I'm pretty sure, and I'm only using this because this is an organization that is dying to be the New England Patriots. But you know, there were times where Tom Brady challenged Bill Belichick, and did that ever lead to his suspension? And plus, by the way, no, Justin Reid is nowhere on the level of Tom Brady. But you got to keep in mind that he is by far one of the best players on this team. He's a team leader. And I just think that was dumb for this organization to suspend Justin Reid. I just didn't like it. And to me, John, this is just another example of all the former Texans who came in under the last regime. They're going to be gone because after this, I don't see a situation where Justin Reid comes back. According to a source, he was already kind of like shaky whether or not he's going to come back and resign with this organization in the offseason to begin with, because he is a free agent starting in March. After this, I wouldn't be surprised if this is the last straw for him. Plus, I gotta mention, he does not like the direction that this franchise is going.
Yeah, I think, man, I'm not coming off as being an a-hole, but how good is Justin Reid? That's a question. I think that's a fair question.
But at the same
And
time,
he's regressed from his rookie year. He's had injury history issues, and there have been moments where you kind of look at him and you may question whether or not he's a big priority for this team to bring him back. But you don't bench him. You don't bench him. And we found the reason why. That screams Bill O'Brien to me. Now, Bill O'Brien was in a situation where he was the general manager and head coach, and the guys that were going off on him, you're not going to bench J.J. Watt. You trade DeAndre Hopkins. You're not going to bench J.J. Watt. I disagree with this decision. There's a lot of things that I want to say, but I want to, as you mentioned, I want to find out some more about the situation. I even question whether or not this was David Culley's decision.
of course not.
I
I'm pretty sure it's not.
I question it. I wouldn't be shocked. We found out later in the years that it wasn't. But when your team is looking for a win against a team that is as bad as the New York Jets, and you're not that far away, you're not far away at all. You're around the corner. You're across the street in a subdivision of bad teams. You guys are right. You're neighbors. I think you need all of your best players out on the field. And now it begs the question, how do these players really feel about this head coach? How do they feel? How will they feel? Do they respect him? Now, I don't have any surefire answer on that as of right now, but do they even respect David Culley? And it'd be hard to respect a guy that was brought in to do a job and is being controlled by the higher ups. So when I look at Justin Reid, who's a very smart player, and I look at David Culley, who has made a lot of not very smart decisions, eventually smart and dumb collide. It's the way of the world, right? Like good and evil, smart and dumb. That's just how it goes. Losing in Texas, they collide. They come together at some point. And I think this is probably what it was. One of those moments where he just couldn't hold his tongue anymore, mentioned how he felt. And as a result of that, got benched. Now, let's look at some players who hadn't necessarily called him out. I mean, Brandon Cooks, he's a guy that wants he's a culture guy. He's a guy that wants another contract. Another contract. Mark Ingram, before being traded, he's a guy that wants another contract. And so a lot of these players are doing whatever it takes to get brought back for the next year because another year means more money. Justin Reid, who will be a free agent, he'll have an opportunity to say, hey, man, you know what? Screw you guys. I'm going to where they want to win. They know how to win. But I question what these players really think about their head coach right now, even the general manager. I'm Johnson Sports Guy Hickman. Follow us on Twitter at Locked On Texans. Like us on Facebook, and also subscribe to the Locked On Texans YouTube page at Locked On Texans as well.
And as always, I'm your host, Cody Davis. Please remember to follow me on Twitter at CodyDavis_24. Once again, that's Cody, COTYDAVIS_24. Until next time, ladies and gentlemen, Lord have mercy. John, I don't even know what to say no more. Peace.